The spring session of the legislature concluded after midnight with the UCP government passing more than a dozen bills over the last several months. Despite the push to get legislation passed, the government also came under fire from a healthcare contract corruption scandal. The NDP launched attacks, and so too did members within caucus who were subsequently booted out. Tyson Fedor has a recap.
The Alberta government pushed through a controversial Compassionate Care Act to force people with addictions into treatment to crack down on the drug crisis.
A nation-leading piece of legislation and one more tool to address the addiction crisis.
It was one of 19 bills passed by the majority UCP government during the first session of the 31st legislative sitting. Another was a promised tax cut. But the government's procurement practices around awarding healthcare contracts and the termination of the AHS CEO dominated the headlines.
What the UCP delivered instead was the largest corruption scandal in Alberta's history.
The UCP caucus splintered as MLA Peter Guthrie was booted from the party for calling out the lack of transparency. It also sparked calls for Health Minister Adriana LaGrange to resign, including Thursday when protesters from Calgary and Edmonton converged on Red Deer.
Utter chaos in the healthcare system right now. Utter chaos. We don't have access to family doctors.
She should stop her attacks on public service and that she should stand up for Albertans.
A budget also passed based on oil sitting at $68 US a barrel, which has since tumbled. It forecasted a $5.2 billion deficit, which will now likely balloon. Not good enough for MLA Scott Sinclair, spelling the end of his time within the UCP.
The new hostile version of the UCP is not the party of Lougheed or even Ralph Klein, not even close. Either you blindly support this premier or you aren't conservative.
NDP leader Naheed Nenshi watched his first session from the sidelines, still without a seat as he waits for a by-election call.
If you voted Conservative because they're good with money, they're not. I have never seen a fiscal turnaround that big caused entirely by a government's waste and inaction on the budget.
Opposition not just coming from across the aisle, but from within.
When a Conservative calls another Conservative corrupt, that is a pretty damaging claim, and it seems to be really resonating and causing difficulties.
We've lost 2 members of caucus who now sit as independents and who are charting their own course forward.
And Government House Leader Joseph Scow pointing fingers at the NDP for ignoring policy disagreements and making it personal.
And they are very good at dishing it out, but they're not very good at taking it.
Tyson Fedor, CTV News, Calgary.
The opposition NDP says it expects a cabinet shuffle tomorrow, spurred by this week's departure of Rick McIver to become Speaker of the House. Several by-elections are expected this year for vacated seats.